Dr. James Miller stood in front of his computer screen, rubbing his tired eyes. The clock on the wall showed 3:15 a.m., but he couldn't look away from the strange readings on his monitor. For the past week, his deep space scanning equipment had been picking up odd radiation patterns, unlike anything he had seen in his 15 years as an astrobiologist. "This can't be right," he muttered, taking another sip of his cold coffee. The patterns were moving, and they were moving fast. Too fast to be natural space objects. He picked up his phone and dialed the observatory director's number. Within hours, observatories around the world confirmed his findings. Something big was heading toward Earth, and it wasn't following the normal rules of physics. The objects, there were hundreds of them, were slowing down without any visible means of propulsion. The world governments tried to keep it quiet, but in the age of social media, that was impossible. Amateur astronomers started posting pictures online, and within days, #StrangeStarsMoving was trending worldwide. 10 days after Dr. Miller's discovery, the objects entered Earth's orbit. They were ships. Massive ships that looked like liquid metal frozen in space, their surfaces reflecting sunlight like mirrors. The largest one was the size of a small city. The first broadcast came at noon GMT. Every screen on Earth, phones, computers, TVs, even digital billboards, showed the same image. A creature that looked almost human, but not quite, appeared on screens worldwide. Its skin was pale blue, its eyes slightly too large, and its neck too long to be human. People of Earth, it spoke in perfect English, its voice simultaneously translated into every human language. "We are the High Command. Your planet now belongs to us. Your technology is primitive, your defenses inadequate. Surrender now, and we will be merciful." To demonstrate their power, they destroyed half of Earth's satellites in less than a minute. The internet went crazy, phone services became patchy, and GPS systems started failing. Then they targeted an unmanned military base in the desert, turning it to glass with a beam of light from orbit. In the chaos that followed, Dr. Miller found himself rushed to a secure military facility deep underground. The government wanted him to work with their best scientists to understand these aliens. He sat in a room with military officers and other experts, watching screens showing the alien ships. "Look at their ship design," he said, pointing to certain features. "See how they're built. It's all wrong for our gravity well. They're using an enormous amount of energy just to maintain orbit." Captain Lisa Reed, a tactical officer with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, leaned forward. "What do you mean, Doctor?" "These ships," Miller explained, "they're built like they're meant for much weaker gravity. They're working too hard to stay in position. It's like," he searched for a simple comparison, "it's like they built a house of cards and brought it into a windstorm." Before he could explain further, the room's screens lit up with new warnings. The aliens had launched smaller ships from their main fleet. They were entering Earth's atmosphere, heading for major cities around the globe. "They're starting their invasion," Captain Reed announced, her voice tense but controlled. "All stations, prepare for contact." Dr. Miller watched the ships descend, his scientific mind racing. Something about their descent path seemed off. They were coming in too steep, too fast, like they weren't fully prepared for Earth's gravity. He started typing calculations into his computer, a theory forming in his mind. The first alien ground forces would land within the hour. As military commanders around the world prepared their forces for humanity's first interstellar war, Miller couldn't shake the feeling that they had all missed something important about these invaders, something that had to do with the very force that kept their feet on the ground: gravity itself. The Earth's skies filled with alien ships, their metal surfaces turning the evening red as they reflected the setting sun. Humanity's first day of alien contact was ending, but the real battle was about to begin. And perhaps, just perhaps, Earth itself would turn out to be humanity's greatest ally in the fight to come. The alien ships landed in open areas around major cities, their massive forms creating deep impressions in the ground. In New York, they chose Central Park. In London, Hyde Park. In Tokyo, they hovered above the Imperial Palace Gardens. Each landing site became a staging ground for what should have been humanity's defeat. Captain Lisa Reed watched through high-powered binoculars from a secure observation post in Manhattan. The aliens were finally emerging from their ships, and something wasn't right about their movements. "Are you seeing this?" She spoke into her radio, adjusting the focus. "Command, please tell me you're recording this." The aliens wore sleek-powered armor that made them look like chrome giants, each standing nearly 8 feet tall. But their movements were strange. They took huge, awkward steps, like someone trying to walk in oversized boots. Several of them stumbled as they walked down their landing ramps. "It looks like they're bouncing," one of her soldiers whispered. He was right. Each step sent them slightly into the air, as if they weren't used to their own weight. Back at the underground command center, Dr. Miller was analyzing the footage, their armors working overtime. He noted, pointing to the visible strain in the joints of their powered suits. "Look at how the servos are constantly adjusting. It's like they're fighting against something." The aliens began setting up their equipment around Central Park. They struggled with their own weapons, devices that looked like they should be lightweight, but seemed to burden them. One alien dropped a piece of machinery, and it crashed into the ground with enough force to crack the pavement. The first attack came at noon. The aliens advanced toward the city proper, their weapons ready, but their formation was off. They moved too slowly, too cautiously. Their powerful energy weapons fired with deadly accuracy, but each shot seemed to push them backward more than it should. "They're not used to the recoil," Captain Reed realized, watching through her binoculars as an alien nearly fell over after firing its weapon. They didn't account for Earth's gravity in their weapon design. The human military had been ordered not to engage directly yet, just observe and gather intelligence. But around the world, similar reports were coming in. In Moscow, aliens were having trouble climbing stairs. In Rio de Janeiro, they avoided hills entirely. In Hong Kong, they wouldn't enter any buildings over 3 stories tall. Dr. Miller worked frantically at his computer, pulling up data from thousands of sources. "Their ships must have artificial gravity," he explained to the military commanders. "That's why they seemed fine in space. But down here, on the ground, they're at the mercy of Earth's natural gravity." The aliens' advance through the cities was slower than expected. Their superior technology was obvious. They could disintegrate buildings with a single shot, and their armor could deflect most conventional weapons. But they moved like people wearing concrete boots, each step careful and measured. By evening, they had secured only small areas around their landing zones. Their expected swift victory had turned into a sluggish occupation. In their strongest show of force yet, they fired a massive energy beam from orbit, carving a warning message into the moon. "Surrender or perish." But Captain Reed saw something different in that display. "They're trying to intimidate us because the ground invasion isn't going as planned," she told her superiors. "They're compensating." In the command center, Dr. Miller finally finished his calculations. "I know what's wrong with them," he announced, his voice filled with sudden hope. "Their home world. It must have much weaker gravity than Earth. Everything about them, from their movements to their equipment, is designed for a world where things weigh less." The alien invasion had begun, but their first day on Earth had revealed a crucial weakness. As night fell, humanity began to understand that perhaps they weren't as defenseless as they'd thought. The very planet itself was fighting back, in the most fundamental way possible, by being exactly what it had always been, a world that had shaped human evolution to handle its heavy gravity. Dr. Miller hadn't slept in 36 hours, but he couldn't stop working. The screens around him showed intercepted alien communications, their signals finally cracked by Earth's best code breakers. What he saw confirmed his theory and revealed something even more important. Their homeworld has zero point 0.6 Earth gravity, he explained to the Emergency Council of Military Leaders and Scientists. Everything they built, everything they are, evolved for a world where things weigh 40% less. Captain Reed pointed to footage from Chicago, where aliens were attempting to clear rubble from a destroyed building. Their powered armor sparked and whined with each movement. That's why their suits are failing, she said. They weren't designed to lift this much weight for this long. The aliens' communications revealed their growing frustration. Their equipment was breaking down faster than expected. Joints were cracking, servos burning out, and power cells draining at triple the normal rate. Even their bodies were struggling. Their bones and muscles weren't built for Earth's pull. Look at this, Dr. Miller played a translated message from an alien squad leader. They're saying their medical bays are full of troops with stress fractures and muscle tears. Their bodies literally can't handle our gravity. But the High Command wasn't giving up. New orders came down from their orbiting fleet. Adapt or face punishment. The aliens began modifying their equipment, adding reinforcement to their armor and boosting power to their movement systems. Tom Walker, a former Marine now leading a resistance group, sent in footage of aliens trying new tactics. They were using floating platforms to move around, avoiding walking whenever possible. Their weapons had been modified with stabilizers to handle the recoil. They're smart, Captain Reed admitted, watching the footage. They're learning and adapting. But every adaptation costs them more power, more resources, and they can't change the basic laws of physics. In the command center, scientists analyzed data from around the world. The aliens' power consumption was enormous. Just keeping their troops mobile required massive energy reserves. Their ships had to constantly resupply their ground forces with new power cells. Here's the real problem they're facing. Dr. Miller pointed to a diagram. Their muscles evolved for 0.6 gravity. Even with powered armor, every movement costs them more energy than it should. They're like deep-sea fish brought to the surface. Their bodies just aren't built for these conditions. The aliens' frustration showed in their increasingly aggressive tactics. They began leveling buildings rather than trying to occupy them. They avoided ground combat, preferring to attack from their floating platforms. But each solution created new problems. Their platforms make them visible targets, Captain Reed noted, and they can only carry so much weight before Earth's gravity pulls them down too. They're trading mobility for vulnerability. The breakthrough came when Dr. Miller decoded more of their technical specifications. Their entire civilization is built around lighter gravity, he explained. Their materials, their engineering principles, even their understanding of structural integrity. It's all wrong for Earth. This revelation spread through military commands worldwide. Humanity had spent its entire existence adapting to Earth's gravity. Every building, every tool, every fighting technique was perfectly suited to these conditions. What had seemed like humanity's ordinary environment had become their greatest defense. A message from the alien High Command revealed their growing concern. Surface gravity exceeding acceptable parameters. Structural integrity of all ground-based systems at risk. Request immediate technological solution. But there was no easy solution. The aliens could modify their equipment, adjust their tactics, and power through the strain. But they couldn't change the fundamental fact that every step, every movement, every action on Earth cost them nearly twice the energy it would on their home world. As the third day of the invasion drew to a close, humanity began to see a path to victory. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing if they couldn't effectively use it. Earth itself had become humanity's strongest ally, its relentless gravitational pull grinding down the invaders with every passing hour. Tom Walker crouched behind a fallen concrete pillar, watching an alien patrol struggle up a steep city street. Their modified armor whined with each step, servos screaming against Earth's pull. He pressed his radio button twice. The signal. From the buildings on either side, resistance fighters emerged with simple tools, marbles, oil, and water. They spread these across the street behind the alien patrol. Physics and gravity would do the rest. The aliens tried to turn when they heard the commotion, but their movements were too slow. On the slick surface, their already unstable footing failed completely. 3 8-foot-tall armored soldiers crashed to the ground, their weight becoming their enemy. The heavy armor that protected them now pinned them down. "Now," Tom shouted. His team emerged with modified EMP devices, crude but effective against the aliens' power systems. The fallen aliens' armor locked up as the power failed, trapping them in metal coffins until their comrades could rescue them. Across the city, similar scenes played out. Humanity had learned fast. They didn't need to destroy the aliens. They just needed to let gravity do the work. Every steep street became a trap. Every smooth surface became a weapon. In the military command center, Captain Reed watched the reports come in. "The resistance fighters are using the city itself against them," she explained to her superiors. "The aliens can't handle urban warfare. They need wide, flat spaces for their modified equipment." Dr. Miller added new data to the screens. Their power consumption is off the charts. They're burning through energy cells just trying to stay mobile. And look at this. Their supply ships are having to make more frequent trips through our atmosphere. The aliens try to adapt. They deployed heavy support platforms to carry their troops, but these made them predictable targets. They attempted to use their ships for close air support, but the constant adjustment for Earth's gravity made precision bombing impossible. In New York, Tom's team watched an alien supply ship try to land in Central Park. Its engines roared louder than they should have needed to, fighting against Earth's pull. The ship landed hard, crushing its own landing gear. The aliens had been on Earth for 5 days, and they still hadn't properly adjusted their landing calculations. "They're getting desperate," Captain Reed noted, watching drone footage of aliens attempting to set up a forward base. Their construction robots kept miscalculating material weights, dropping beams and crushing equipment. "They're making mistakes." The turning point came when Tom's resistance cell captured an alien communications hub. The translated messages revealed the invaders' growing frustration. Ground operations experiencing critical equipment failure rates. Troop mobility severely compromised. Native resistance exploiting gravitational disadvantage. Dr. Miller worked with military engineers to develop new tactics. "They're vulnerable when they try to climb or descend," he explained. Their armor was designed to enhance their strength based on their home world's gravity. Here, it's barely enough to keep them moving on flat ground. The resistance fighters began herding alien patrols toward basement entrances and subway stations. The aliens, afraid of being trapped underground with their heavy equipment, would retreat. Every building became a potential trap, every staircase a tactical advantage. Tom's team developed a simple but effective tactic. They would damage the aliens' floating platforms just enough to create a slow power loss. The aliens would find themselves gradually sinking, fighting a losing battle against Earth's gravity until they had to abandon their positions. The aliens responded with brute force, using their ship-based weapons to level entire city blocks rather than risk close combat. But they couldn't destroy every building, couldn't flatten every hill. Earth's gravity remained constant, an invisible ally that never tired, never weakened, and never stopped making every alien movement a struggle. As the first week of invasion neared its end, humanity had found its rhythm. They weren't just fighting the aliens. They were letting Earth itself do most of the work. Every passing hour made the invaders' technological advantage mean less and less. Dr. Miller stared at the 3D map of New York's underground tunnels displayed on the command center's main screen. Subway lines, sewers, maintenance tunnels, and basement connections created a massive web beneath the city. Then he noticed something strange in the alien scan patterns. "They're avoiding the underground completely," he said, pointing to the data. "Every scan they make stops at ground level. They're not even trying to look below." Captain Reed leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Could their scanners be malfunctioning? "No," Miller replied, excitement growing in his voice. "They're afraid of what's down there. Their whole civilization evolved on a low-gravity world. They probably never built underground. Too risky when you don't understand higher gravity construction. Tom Walker and his resistance team were the first to test this theory. They set up a base in an abandoned subway station, carefully watching alien patrols above. The invaders never came down. Even when they detected human activity below ground, they would only fire blindly into tunnel entrances. "They're terrified of cave-ins," Tom reported back to command. "Their understanding of structural engineering is all wrong for Earth gravity. They don't trust our underground structures to hold." This discovery changed everything. Resistance groups worldwide began moving their operations underground. The aliens' powerful sensors and weapons meant little when they wouldn't follow humans below the surface. In Paris, fighters used the catacombs. In Tokyo, they moved through the vast underground shopping malls. In London, abandoned tube stations became command centers. The aliens were forced to watch helplessly as humans appeared from one tunnel entrance, attacked, and disappeared into another. Dr. Miller analyzed captured alien communications. Their engineers are warning them about underground operations. They keep talking about catastrophic structural calculations and unacceptable gravitational stress factors. They literally don't believe our tunnels can stay up. The aliens tried to collapse the tunnels from above, but generations of human engineers had built them strong. The subway systems had been designed to support the weight of entire cities. The invaders' weapons could destroy buildings, but the deep tunnels remained largely intact. Tom's team turned the underground into a maze of traps and ambush points. They discovered that the aliens' heavy armor made them especially vulnerable in tight spaces. In the confined tunnels, the invaders couldn't use their favorite tactic of jumping back when attacked. There simply wasn't room. Their bodies are used to making longer, lighter movements, Dr. Miller explained to the military command. In these tunnels, they have to fight in close quarters while carrying what feels like double their normal weight. It's like trying to box underwater while wearing a backpack full of rocks. The aliens became increasingly frustrated. Their advanced sensors showed human activity beneath their feet, but they couldn't effectively respond. Every time they tried to pursue humans underground, their heavy equipment and unstable movement made them easy targets. Captain Reed coordinated with resistance cells worldwide to develop new tactics. They started using the vibrations of alien patrols above to time their attacks. The invaders' heavy footsteps and struggling armor joints made them easy to track through the ceiling. "Listen for the whine," Tom taught his fighters. Their servo motors scream when they try to move too fast. That's when they're most off balance. The underground advantage grew stronger as humans learned to use sound against the aliens. In the tunnels, the invaders' armor motors echoed loudly, giving away their position. Their heavy footsteps became death knells, announcing their presence to hidden resistance fighters. By the second week of invasion, Earth's underground had become humanity's fortress. The aliens controlled much of the surface, but they couldn't hold it effectively when attacks could come from below at any moment. Their fear of cave-ins and tight spaces had given humans a sanctuary they couldn't invade. In the command center, Dr. Miller updated the resistance victory map. More than 60% of major cities now had functioning underground resistance networks. The aliens might rule the skies, but beneath their feet, humanity was preparing to take back their world. Dr. Miller paced in the command center, his eyes fixed on the massive alien command station orbiting Earth. 2 weeks of fighting had revealed the aliens' weakness on the ground, but their control of space remained absolute. Then he noticed something odd about the station's power readings. "Captain Reed," he called out suddenly. "Look at these energy patterns from their command station. They're using massive amounts of power for something, and it's not their weapons." Reed studied the data, her military training helping her spot the pattern. "It's their artificial gravity system," she said. "They're keeping their command station at their homeworld's gravity level." The realization hit them both at the same time. The alien leaders had never experienced Earth's gravity. They were commanding their invasion from a comfortable environment that matched their own world. "That's why they don't understand what their troops are going through," Miller said. "They're not feeling it themselves, But what if we could change that? The plan came together quickly. Earth still had a few space shuttles hidden away, protected from the initial alien attacks. They had been designed for multiple gravity conditions, and their crews were trained to handle various gravitational forces. Major Bill Jones, a veteran astronaut, was called in to lead the mission. "We need a small team," he explained to the gathered pilots. "People who understand both space operations and combat. We're going to hack their gravity controls." The team trained in secret underground facilities. They practiced moving in heavy gravity suits, preparing for every possible situation. The aliens' artificial gravity technology was advanced, but its principles were similar to what humans had theorized. Their system works by creating a gravity field throughout the station, Dr. Miller explained to the space team. "If we can access their main engineering section, we can reset it to match Earth's gravity. Their entire command structure will be paralyzed." The mission launched during a solar flare, using the radiation to hide their approach. The shuttle had been painted with light-absorbing material, making it nearly invisible against the darkness of space. They watched as alien patrols passed by, their ship still struggling with the basic task of maintaining orbit around a high-gravity world. "Their ships waste so much power fighting Earth's gravity," Jones radioed back. "They never learned to work with natural forces like we did. They just try to power through everything." The team found their way into the station through a maintenance airlock. Inside, the difference was immediate. They felt lighter, bouncing gently with each step. The aliens moved freely here, their bodies designed for this level of gravity. "Remember," Jones whispered to his team, "they've never fought in their real bodies before, always in powered armor. Here, they're vulnerable." The team moved through the station's corridors, using their heavier Earth-trained muscles to their advantage. When combat broke out, the aliens found themselves facing humans who were stronger, faster, and better trained for hand-to-hand fighting. They reached the engineering section after an hour of careful movement. The aliens had never expected an attack here, in their own command station. Their security was focused on electronic threats, not physical infiltration. Dr. Miller guided them through the process by radio. "Find the gravity control panel. It should have symbols showing gravitational force. Change the settings to match Earth's gravity, 1.0 instead of 0.6. The effect was instant and devastating. Throughout the station, aliens suddenly felt their weight nearly double. They stumbled, fell, and struggled to stand. Equipment crashed to the floor as it exceeded its design tolerances. Alarms blared as the station's structure creaked under the increased gravitational stress. "Mission accomplished," Jones reported, watching through a viewport as alien commanders experienced Earth's gravity for the first time. "Let's see them command an invasion when they can barely stand up." The team fought their way back to their shuttle, their Earth-trained bodies giving them a crucial advantage in the now heavy gravity environment. Behind them, they left chaos and confusion. The aliens' command structure was collapsing, literally brought down by the weight of their own arrogance. The alien command station's new Earth-level gravity had an effect that spread far beyond its corridors. The High Command, experiencing the crushing weight their troops had faced for weeks, finally understood the full magnitude of their mistake. Dr. Miller watched the incoming transmissions with growing excitement. "Their entire command structure is falling apart," he announced to the war room. "Their leaders can barely move in their own command center. They never trained for this." Captain Reed coordinated with resistance forces worldwide. "All teams, this is your moment," she broadcasted. "Their orbital command is in chaos. Push them while they're disorganized." Tom Walker and his resistance fighters emerged from their underground networks across every major city. The aliens, receiving confused and panicked orders from their space station, began to lose their coordination. Their carefully planned formations broke down. They're retreating to their ships. Messages poured in from around the world. The aliens' proud march had turned into a stumbling rush back to their landing craft. Their powered armor, running low on energy after weeks of fighting Earth's gravity, began to fail completely. In the command station above, The alien leaders faced a harsh reality. Their bodies, evolved for a lighter world, could barely function. The simple act of walking to their control stations exhausted them. Emergency meetings had to be canceled because officials couldn't physically reach the conference rooms. "Look at these readings," Dr. Miller pointed to his screens. "Their station's structure wasn't designed for this gravity level. They have to leave soon, or the whole thing might collapse." The High Command finally sent the transmission everyone had been waiting for. The message was short, broadcast on all frequencies. "This world is unsuitable for occupation. Full withdrawal ordered. Immediate effect." But humanity wasn't finished. As alien ships began lifting off worldwide, Captain Reed enacted the final phase of their plan. "All units, commence Operation Gravity Well," she ordered. Earth's remaining military forces launched a carefully coordinated attack. They didn't target the retreating aliens directly. Instead, they forced them to make rapid course corrections in Earth's gravity. Ships that tried to accelerate too quickly broke apart. Those that maneuvered too sharply crashed into each other. "Their pilots never learned to truly account for our gravity," Dr. Miller explained as they watched. "They relied too much on their technology to compensate. When pressed, they make mistakes." The alien retreat turned into a rout. Ships collided in their rush to escape Earth's gravitational pull. The massive command station, its structure compromised by weeks of Earth gravity stress, began breaking apart. Escape pods launched in all directions as the aliens abandoned their flagship. Tom's resistance teams worked quickly to secure crashed alien ships and abandoned equipment. "Their technology is amazing," he reported back. "But it's all designed wrong for our world. We'll need to rebuild it from the ground up." Dr. Miller was already studying a captured alien drive system. "We can adapt this," he said excitedly. "Now that we understand their gravitational limitations, we can modify their technology to work properly under Earth conditions. They've given us a shortcut to the stars." Within hours, Earth's sky was clear of alien ships. The invasion that was supposed to take days had lasted 3 weeks, and the invaders had been defeated not by superior weapons or tactics, but by the simple, unchangeable fact of Earth's gravity. Captain Reed stood at the command center window, watching the sun rise on humanity's first day of victory. "We didn't just survive an alien invasion," she said. "We learned something important. Our greatest strength wasn't our weapons or our strategies. It was the fact that we evolved on this world, adapted to its conditions over millions of years. Around the world, humans emerged from their underground shelters to find their cities damaged but their planet unconquered. They had gained not just victory, but knowledge, advanced alien technology that they could study and improve. Earth's higher gravity, which had seemed like such an ordinary thing just weeks ago, had proven to be humanity's greatest defense. The invasion was over, and humanity had learned that sometimes the greatest advantage isn't the ability to overcome natural forces, but the wisdom to work with them.